welcome to the June 11th Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Richard Migliore.
I think we got some great races to look at, and obviously pace is, I think, going to be a big factor in what we talk about today.
Yeah, as it often is, but we've got some dirt races, we've got some turf races. In fact, we're going to start out in the dirt. We're going to talk about a maiden race from last Thursday, June 4th, and this was a race, Richie, that featured a supersonic pace.
Yeah, very fast pace. Normally we're talking about slow paces in turf races. Well, we're talking about a fast pace in a dirt race. Two first-time starters, Sanctifica, actually broke running for the Christophe Clement trainee.
Going easy.
And going easy. And you know what Javier Castellano was trying to do with Strong Incentive, put her mind in the game, first-time starter. But now they're going fast, and he's trying to slow her down, but he's already given her the signal to run.
And it's also a classic example, and these are the three horses in front. Between them is a Todd Pletcher horse off a layoff that was a heavy favorite. And it's really Sanctifica who runs the tremendous race and finishing fourth here, though you could bet either one back, and keep in mind the closers took advantage of this pace. But once again, it's a classic example. When you get three horses involved in the pace, that's when you can get a runoff.
Yeah, and once the first-time starter Sanctifica broke so well and kind of committed to the lead, you know Eric Cancel can't do anything but hold his position. Javier Castellano's trying to do the right thing on the outside and get a hold of her, but the damage is already done because they were aggressive leaving the gate, which is what you're supposed to do with first-time starters.
No, I agree, and it's hard because Todd's horse was ready off a layup and got sharp. Christophe's horse, as you said, broke so sharply. Chad Brown had this horse ready to go. All these horses were ready to run. The pace worked against them. The first-time starter, El Razi, was able to rate and take advantage of it. I still think that strong incentive is probably okay. The pace hurt her, but you can't deny this Sanctifica ran this amazing race and holding on for fourth here. This horse is still running.
Yeah, she hung in there, and it looked like at one point when she had put the other speeds away, spurted off, that she might even be on her way to victory. Now, obviously, it had to show up on her somehow. And the question I have out of this, and this is something I'll direct at you, does this race hurt her because it was such a hard race, or does she actually able to go forward off of it?
Well, obviously, different horses are going to react differently.
Sure.
And I think when you talk about Christophe Clement trains one, Chad Brown trains another, these are guys that don't have a problem taking their time, that they're not going to run a horse unless they feel she's ready. So I really feel that when these horses show up again, I trust that their trainers feel they're ready. Now, you never know when they come on the racetrack.
Well, I agree with you, though. I think they put enough foundation that even a hard effort like that is not going to make them regress as maybe some other trainers who don't have them as prepared.
Well, remember that sprinter whose name escapes me was three-year-old last year, ran against Bayern and finished fairly gamely to finish fourth or fifth, I think, in our Woody Stevens. That was a horse that showed brilliant speed first out at Saratoga, lost, I think, to Havana, actually, first time out, perhaps, finishing second, and came back as a gray horse, one of those Generazio horses. And that horse came back in relatively short time and ran just as well the second time out.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, you know, Christophe Clement has this reputation as being a trainer that gets horses to go long, that gets horses predominantly more grass horses. He can train a fast horse, too.
No, it's pretty amazing that we're talking about a vicious speed duel in a dirt sprint. First-time starters from Christophe Clement and Chad Brown, sort of the opposite way you think. Good trainers can train all kinds of horses. Race number 2 we're going to talk about was later that day, and this was the Intercontinental. And this is a race where we had the opposite pace.
Yeah, for 7 furlongs on the turf and good horses, a really good group of horses, to go 46-3 is actually extremely slow.
They're crawling out there, and I think all 4 horses that we're circling here, Token of Love, who's victimized by the situation inside for John Velasquez, Carolina Shag, who gets taken back and makes a big move, the 7, Kuhn Kenne, who was almost 110-1, runs shockingly well here with some trouble, and Distorted Beauty, the 9, this was the one that surprised me the most. She almost wired our Pebbles last year against Lady Laura. Why have they decided to take her back here? She's the one that shocks me the most.
Well, it's a good question that I don't have an answer for. The eventual winner, Zendaya, is getting the perfect, absolutely perfect trip, laying second in the clear to a big long shot. So essentially, she's controlling the race from second position like she's on the lead. And you could see the lack of pace, how much trouble it creates in behind them because there's no separation.
I agree, and all these horses are going back. The 9 has lost position back there, and you see Jose Ortiz is asking her to go a little, but she's just not really responding. And maybe she doesn't have the speed that she had last year. Token of Love is sort of hurt by the post and circumstance. The 5 horse, actually, I thought that this horse, Carolina Shag, was coming off an upset win, made a nice middle move. The 7, Kuhn Kenne, has also lost some position as well. These horses ran okay. It's interesting. One of the first conversations you and I ever had discussing race dynamics, we talked about how much easier it is to wire 7 furlong races, and I'm going back 20-plus years, Richie. because you get that slow first quarter, you turn into a 5-furlong sprint with an advantage.
Yeah, which you don't get going 6 because everybody comes out a little more aggressive, a little more, running a little bit more. And 7/8, you break, and everybody kind of looks at each other for the first quarter of a mile, and now positions are established, and now you can start letting your horse march on. And when you've got a quality horse like Zendaya in that position, how are you going to run her down?
No, you can't run her down because she is a good sprinter who's getting better for Christophe Clement, and maybe 7 is stretching the limits of what she is best at, but it wasn't really a 7-furlong race. It was really a 5-furlong race, which she got a head start.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Token of Love as a horse, to me, was just unlucky. I don't think there was anything Johnny Velazquez could have done different. Basically, she didn't break great. The post position kind of forced her into that inside spot, and she was just surrounded.
And she was coming off her first race in the country where I wouldn't say she ran off, but she ran off a little on the front end, and they were probably afraid of that, didn't want it to happen. So maybe she was hard for her. The others were long shots that I just thought outran their odds and had a bit of a trip. I do think, though, and listen, maybe with Distorted Beauty, she's just a different horse as she's gotten older. And I think, all things said and done, she ran very, very well in this race. It still gets back to trying to get your position going forward. That way, if they run off on you, you can get good position. But if they're going slowly, you're a little more forwardly placed.
Yeah, well, what's the downside of coming out running and they go on? It spreads it out, gives you more options. My question to you now, though, is there were a lot of trips in this race. Is there one in particular that you key in on, or just something you have to look at the next race, how it comes up, who you decide you're going to play next time?
Well, I'm clearly looking to play against Zendaya if she gets into a more competitive pace. Not that she's not a good horse, but she's a little bit dressed up off this race.
Right.
I think that Distorted Beauty, as she moves forward this year for Bruce Levine's got a good race in her. I don't know that she can win the Diana, but I think there's some grade 2s and grade 3s that could have her name on it. I'm very interested in horses like Kun Kun and Carolina Shag because they're going to be sort of missed, and they're going to be big long shots wherever they show up. And if I can make a case for them that this last race is better than it looks on paper, and make a case for them to get a piece of it at 15, 20, 25 to 1, they're the ones I'm looking at.
And that's how you make money.
Well, yeah, because they're the long shots you're going to get going forward. The other ones are more obvious.
Sure.
We'll move on to our third race, and this is a maiden race that was run on June 5th, the 7th race. And while the favorite who finished second may have been a little unlucky here, we really want to talk about a Bill Mott first-time starter named Lottery Ticket that both you and I sort of separately felt ran extremely well in here.
He saw every situation a horse can possibly see in his first start. Didn't break well, got shuffled back out of the chute, which we talk about when a horse doesn't break well, they get squeezed. Now he's got run, and Joe Rosario senses they're not going extremely quick. And this is a prime example when I talk about you have to make a decision and either get up in a spot or stay out of that spot. You can't be a little bit in there. He commits and goes forward, and this horse is ultimately in an uncomfortable spot, but he was playing the hand dealt him.
He was. And he also probably realized, I'm on a Bill Mott first-time starter that's going to need a race. I'm behind the 8 ball anyway. I'm not likely to win this race. You want to use this race to get the most you can out of it, and I think Joel did that perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see here, he's got to commit to go forward at this point. Otherwise, you're going to get shut off. There's a point when you get into the turn that you have to be all the way in there or all the way out of there. Now, I think ultimately this move by Joe Rosario cost look around corners the race because Irad Ortiz allowed him to get up inside of him, kind of took his extra option away, and he had to wait until he could duck back to the inside and rally, and he's only beaten a nose.
Yeah, it's interesting to point out. Joel gets in there, and I think he gave himself a chance to maybe get lucky. And something that you and I really like, if he gave up here and finished well back, I still think we would like him. But the fact that the one horse runs off him a little bit, he's down the inside, he's never in a comfortable rhythm, and this horse continues to run forward.
Well, it seemed to me like he ran a little bit in spots in the stretch, just being unsure of himself, being in tight, and he kind of ran on again through the wire. This is absolutely the kind of horse that comes back and wins off of a race like this.
I totally agree. And in my opinion, Lottery Ticket is not just a horse that's going to win a race going forward very soon, but probably going to go on and do okay because this was a very live field in here, and I love the performance in this first turn.
A live field and a race that basically schooled him for a career because he got to see every situation.
Yeah, you can't ask for more from a first-time starter, especially from a trainer whose firsters rarely win. So it's really a perfect setup. We'll see what happens going forward. We want to talk about the Acorn from Saturday's tremendous Belmont Stakes card. And this was a race that was dramatically affected by the start. Keep your eye on all the way between the 8 and 3, because while the 8 comes in a little bit, the 3 will come out here by the moon and will dramatically affect everybody there. And the winner gets badly squeezed. Bar of Gold gets badly squeezed. Condo Commando, whether you liked her or not, any chance that she had in this race was completely lost because she gets eliminated and doesn't get to show her early speed, and this is just against her running style. She's well back already. You see the 4 and 7 are there. The 6, Carlina, the winner's there, and the 5, Bar of Gold, is there. And Bar of Gold, Richie, ran surprisingly well to finish 5th.
She really ran well. Now, that being said, Carolina was decidedly best. I mean, she got jammed out of the race, got back in the race, continued on. Her performance was amazing. Getting back to the start, by the moon, to be fair, stumbled and broke out a stride. There was never any effort to correct her. Now the first step isn't the rider's fault because she did stumble, and they're 1,000-pound animals, and their momentum and weight are going to take them in that direction. But you want to see some sort of effort when horses get accordion and squeeze like that. Not only does it affect the entire race, but horses get injured.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, you're the rider, and you understand this as well as anybody could possibly understand it. And it's unfortunate because, as you say, it's a bad deal for Jose. She stumbles, there's nothing you can do about it. It's frustrating, but you do have to realize the ramifications if you don't adjust your horse after that.
Well, it's not the first stride that you can put any blame anywhere. It's the second, third, fourth, fifth stride where you just don't see an effort.
Yeah, you don't see it, and you saw a lot of horses badly affected by it. You know, Condo Commando is trying to keep up there, is on the outside. Bar of Gold is making that move in behind horses and ran fine. But the thing about Carlina is, when you think about what happened at the start, it takes her back to last. Johnny basically had to ride her wide the entire race, and she never gives up. This was a remarkable performance by her.
Well, she had every right at this point to pass out or hang and finish third even. I mean, because Wonder Gal, I thought, got a good trip. She was in a little bit tight, maybe between horses, but only because she couldn't accelerate quite as well. Carolina was just a remarkable performance that she kept finding, and by the moon ran extremely well, but I think she was aided by the trips that she created for a bunch of other horses.
Well, of course. I mean, it's a different pace up front if Condo Commando breaks, or even Calamity Kate, the horse with the 4-horse. I would love to see this race with a clean break, but I cannot understand any argument by any sane person that doesn't say a clean break makes Carolina a much easier winner.
Absolutely. I mean, and there were other horses affected. I think Bar of Gold would have ran better. She would have been probably second. Got a big piece of it, but Carolina was the best horse.
And the race dynamics were changed by it. A lot going on in that race, and a race we're glad we could show. We have one race left to show, and this is the 9th race on Sunday, June 7th. This was a race that had no pace on paper, that was completely controlled in the front end, and neither one of us can figure out what the game plan was with the eventual 4th-place finisher, Bigger Better, who in a slow-paced race had good position early because of a good break, because they were going slowly, yet for whatever reason, the rider insisted on dragging this horse back almost unbelievably.
Well, even if you want to be in behind horses and follow, at some point you've got to stop going backwards as the race is going forwards. And it's just a little hard for me to understand what the bigger picture was with Bigger Picture.
I mean, right here, okay, you're fighting the horse, but you've got to realize that you're fighting the horse because they're going so darn slowly, and they're mile and 16th races on the inner that feature slow paces. And I mean, it takes a Herculean effort, because you think he's taking this horse back now? I mean, it just gets worse. He almost gets him back to last.
Yeah, and again, it's just hard for me to understand at what point do you just put your hands down, allow your horse to get comfortable, and go forward. I don't know what the instructions were, so I can't speak about that. I just know that if I was in that position as a rider, I probably would have disregarded the instructions if they were to go back to last.
Yeah, I don't know how this worked to this horse's advantage. And the amazing thing about it was, it just feels like he's expending energy taking this horse back in the race, and they're going remarkably slowly up front. Yet somehow, this horse actually manages to pass, and not under a particularly hard ride, pass most of the field to finish 4th. This was a horse that was clearly best.
I will say this. One thing never worked for me. If I had to take that much a hold of a horse, let's say I was just in trouble, and I had to pull on a horse for more than half a mile, and this was more like 7/8 of a mile, horse wouldn't respond to me when I asked him to run. Horses would die under wraps with me like that. I knew there was always a point where I had to put my hands down and allow them to go forward because they were expending more energy, me restraining them. I think it's remarkable this horse ran on to be fourth.
I agree. I think it was an incredible performance by this horse when you consider the dynamics. And sometimes you wonder, and you'll see it here, a horse being restrained. It's almost like the horse says, oh, now you want to go. Well, guess what? I don't want to go anymore.
Yeah, and again, it's just hard for me. And I try to look at races and put myself in those guys' position because I was out there. And to be fair, and when I watched the head-ons and I watched the different angles, I was looking for maybe the horse was trying to get out. There was a reason. I couldn't come up with one that I could hang my hat on.
No, it feels like a horse that's improved a great deal since last year, and I think we'll see bigger picture getting in the winner's circle pretty soon. Once again, we can always use your help. It's trips and traps at NYRInc.com.